Coffee was halfway to my lips when a sharp crack split the morning. Karen's white SUV burst through the mist and tore my gate clean off its hinge. Before the dust settled, a thick envelope slid from the mailbox and hit the gravel like a gavel. I lowered the mug, letting the steam drift across the porch rail. The air smelled of alfalfa and last night's drizzle. A horse nickered beyond the fence. Karen didn't slow. Sunglasses forward, she traced the ruts as if the road belonged to her. The gate swung behind her bumper, the cedar scarred where the latch had been. Private road, I called, voice steady. She cracked her window an inch. Community standard, she said, and the SUV kept moving, tires hissing on damp gravel. By the time her taillights disappeared over the rise, 2 neighbors had wandered to the corner where HOA asphalt met my dirt lane. One raised a phone, the other folded arms studying the wrecked hinge. I gave them a nod, neither greeting nor invitation, and stooped to lift the envelope. Its paper was heavy, embossed with Pine Hollow's logo, an acorn framed by a wreath. Across the front, notice of violation. Inside, I found a typed page announcing a special penalty $1 million for unsightly structure obstructing approved view corridor. The language sagged under its own weight, but one line stuck clubhouse lien authority. I underlined it twice, red pen carving through the legalese. I set the notice on my workbench beside the deed I kept in a plastic sleeve. Morning light spilled across the figures parcel ID meets and bound signatures from the county clerk. The gate wasn't on their maps, neither was the lane. All mine paid for clean. I rubbed a thumb along the cedar post still clinging to the hinge. A splinter bit my palm sharp enough to sting. "Outside your lines, lady," I muttered. The smell of coffee clung to my shirt as I walked the fence line. Pale scars scored the wood where her bumper had shoved through. I photographed the damage, angling the frame to catch the track marks curving into my pasture. Behind me, the HOA's distant gate beeped as another car entered their manicured world. On the porch again, I leafed through the envelope. Rules are rules, she'd said. Rules written for people inside her cul-de-sac, not for me. I slid the letter under my deed folder and closed the clasp. The metal clicked like a promise. I stood a while watching the slats sway. Sunlight winked on the loose hinge, sharp as a warning bell. I drew a breath, steadying the quiet that had lured me here in the first place. "Let's see how far your rules can stretch," I said to the empty yard. The clerk's window was a rectangle of cold light. Fluorescence hummed above, and the counter smelled faintly of toner and lemon cleaner. I slid my deed across the slick surface and kept my voice even. "Parcel 412B. I need jurisdiction confirmed." She adjusted her glasses, the chain at her neck ticking like a metronome. "Larimer County, Pine Hollow vicinity, north edge," I said. "Outside their line." Her fingers moved across a keyboard. A map bloomed on her screen in pixelated greens and grays. She angled it toward me and traced a line with a capped pen. "Here's the HOA boundary," she said. "And here, this hash your parcel. Inside." "Outside," she said, and stamped the parcel map with a crisp thunk that echoed in the tile room. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. She slid the certified copy through the slot. The red seal caught the light. "Keep that with you," she said. "It solves arguments faster than opinions." From the hallway behind us, voices carried through the echo. "She'll drag the clubhouse reserves into it," someone whispered, the consonants skittering like sand. I didn't turn, but the word lodged itself like a burr. I uncapped my pen, wrote clubhouse on my palm, and circled it twice. "Question," I said, tapping the notice I'd brought. "They've cited unsightly structure and a special penalty." "Their covenants say all kinds of things," she said, "but covenants stop at their boundary." I slid the HOA envelope beside the deed. The pages were heavier than they looked, corners sharp from too much seal. When I unfolded the packet completely, a thinner insert slipped loose and drifted to the counter. "What's that?" the clerk asked. I lifted the sheet by its corner. "Bylaws, out Clubhouse Reserve Authority." The header sat there in bold, pretending to be inevitable. "They tucked this in with a violation notice," I said. "Not standard," she murmured. "They're setting a tone." "A lien tone," I said. "On property they don't govern." She tapped the top margin where the section number ran like a flag. "They might try a lien anyway," she said. "They'll see if you blink." I turned the insert over. Someone had initialed it with a shaky flourish, the kind that wants to be read as authority. I rubbed my thumb against a toner smear and left a gray line on my skin. "If they file a lien, what am I watching for?" I asked. "Dates," she said. "How and when they mailed it. Who signed. Keep your own certifieds. Receipts." "Green cards," she said. "You'll want a stack." She stood, stepped to a closet, and returned with a rubber-banded bundle of empty, certified slip forms. The paper edges rasped like dry leaves when she set them down. Timestamps win arguments, she said. So does a calm tone. I nodded. Calm I could do. In the lobby, afternoon light slanted through the glass doors, throwing pale stripes across the floor. A passing neighbor who'd watched the SUV at my gate 2 days before made a low whistle when he saw the certified packet under my arm. "They moving on you?" he asked. "They're trying," I said. "Watch the clubhouse," he said, and kept walking. The doors parted with a pneumatic sigh. Heat rose off the lot and bent the horizon in little waves. Karen's white SUV idled 2 spaces over its paint gleaming like a brochure. She stepped out, a smile already set on her face. "Gideon," she said, as if the county office were her foyer. "Getting your paperwork in order?" "Always," I said. "You." She held out a glossy card with the HOA crest. "Courtesy, compliance. Visit," it read in a font that tried very hard to be friendly. "We don't have to be adversarial," she said. "Fines are just the start. Is that right?" I said. "If you bring that gate into conformance, the board can be generous." "I'm not in your board," I said. "Community's bigger than paperwork," she said. Voice lowered like a secret. "We all benefit when rules are followed." Her sunglasses reflected the parking lot lines, not me. I let the card hover in the air between us and didn't take it. "You've tucked a reserved section into a violation notice," I said. "Odd way to say hello." "Context," she said. "Section 8 gives us tools." "On my land, on our roads," she said, "you'll come to understand." A car door slammed somewhere behind us. The echo startled a bird from the hedges and it arced toward the courthouse flag. Karen slipped the card back into her wallet with a tidy click. "See you soon," she said, and brushed past. The scent of her perfume trailed behind, powdery and careful. I watched the SUV slide away, the sun throwing a hard glare off the hood. On the way back in, I paused at the clerk's counter. She looked up as if she'd been expecting me to return. "They're already talking reserves," I said. "They're floating a balloon," she said. "Your job is to pop it with paper." She reached under the counter and added a second banded stack of green slips to the first. "Make them sign for everything she said, and you sign too." I signed out of the building, the pen tip digging into the thick logbook page. The notation had a gravity to it, one line among many, but mine now. Back at the ranch shop, dusk settled in the doorway like a patient animal. Flies pinged the window screen. The welder I'd used last winter sat asleep under a skin of dust. I pushed the envelope and the stamped map onto the workbench and turned on the desk lamp. The yellow pool of light flattened the papers, made them behave. I spread the certified slips in a neat fan and wrote Pine Hollow HOA on the top one. The act had a small satisfaction, like leveling a shelf so it stops wobbling. "Dates," I said to the empty shop. "Signatures." I unfolded the violation again, tracing the line that announced a special penalty $1 million. The number looked theatrical here, out of its natural habitat of rumor and meeting whispers. I pressed the clerk's certified map beside it so both edges touched jurisdiction anchored to allegation. The contrast soothed me. On the corner of the bench lay the insert I'd fished out at the counter. I smoothed it with the back of my hand. Bylaws Sardietete. Clubhouse Reserve Authority. The paragraph under it promised flexibility and community welfare, words that always mean somebody else will decide for you. If they try it, I said, they'll have to leave fingerprints. A truck crawled past on the county road, and the beam of its headlights picked out the ragged silhouette of my broken gate far down the drive. Offstage, still wounded. The place where this all began. I pulled a blank binder from the shelf, the vinyl cracking softly as it opened. With a marker, I wrote Clubhouse Reserves on a spine label, then slid it into the plastic channel. The binder ring stood like an empty jaw, waiting. "One more thing," I said, and reached for the camera catalog I kept for insurance jobs. I circled a model with good low light and a weatherproof body. Noted, I told the quiet room. I punched 3 holes in the certified parcel map and clicked it into place at the front. The sound of the rings biting shut had a finality to it, the opposite of a rumor. The last of the evening slipped across the workbench and took the heat haze with it. Beyond the door, crickets changed shifts. I stacked the violation packet under the map, slid the OR8 insert on top, and tucked the banded green slips into the front pocket. The binder felt heavier than the sum of its parts. If they file a lien, the clerk had said, you'll want timestamps and certified mail receipts. I turned out the shop light and stood in the doorway long enough to feel the air cool against my face. The gate at the end of the drive was a dark mark against the lighter road, a reminder and a boundary. Inside at my desk, I wrote the date on a fresh tab divider and labeled the first section Mailings. Then I labeled another Minutes Reserves. The labels were my kind of prayer. Small, steady, addressed to order. On my palm, the word Clubhouse had smudged into a gray smudge, but I could still read it. I recapped the marker and checked the time. The binder rings bit shut. Hank slid into the diner booth, dropped an iPad between the ketchup and the coffee, and grinned. Minutes, he said. June and August. Neon from the sign bled across the screen. The TV above the grill hummed Rocky's highlights. Smoke clung to everything vinyl blinds Hank's jacket. He scrolled to a blue-gray PDF. Listen, reserve disbursement Clubhouse, roof timing exception. No member vote. Out of cycle, I asked. Exactly, he said, tapping the line. At the far table, 2 board members stirred sugar into empty mugs. They weren't subtle. The waitress arrived. Coffee, she asked. Black, I said. Eggs and hash, Hank added. You 2 solving crimes or causing them, she teased. Hank angled the tablet. Paper never lies, he said. I turned the screen. The footer showed Karen's wide signature date stamp leaning left. So, what's my move, I asked. Paper trail, Hank said. Cameras deed certified copies. Keep every envelope. And the bylaw. Print 48. Highlight the reserve clause. The waitress set our plates down. Coffee refilling my cup. The smell of burnt grounds curled through the booth. I pulled a pen, wrote angles on a napkin, 1 camera up road, 1 low on the post, another across the lane. Hank nodded. You'll need a binder, he said. Mail on one side, minutes on the other. Gaps tell stories. And at meetings I asked. Ask for the record. Point of order, motion, second. They trapped themselves. He made me repeat it. Point of order was notice posted. Point of order was notice posted. Motion to table until roll call appears. Motion to table until roll call appears. Second, he said, smiling. The boardmen paid and hurried out. The bell above the door jingled like relief. I scrolled again. August showed the same roof note paired with a special assessment. Second draw, Hank muttered. No vote there either. I whistled low. Think they'll try a lien. If they sense fear, Hank said. So, give them timestamps. He tapped my pen. Stop muttering outside your lines, he said. You heard that. You just said it. He grinned. We ate in companionable quiet. Outside, the snowmelt lot glittered faintly. I pictured the gate. Cedar, skin steel heart, not yet. You'll rebuild, Hank asked. Later, I said. First cameras. He took a picture of the minutes, 1 more copy against sudden edits. Minutes are the story they have to live with, he said. The waitress dropped the check and a mint. Keep it, Hank told me. You'll need it when Karen talks. I tucked the mint with my pen. Let the paper speak, he said. We'll make sure it listens, I replied. Outside, wind rattled a napkin against the curb. I typed myself a note. If reserves misuse, Clubhouse leverage. As the phone chimed, one of the boardmen re-entered for a forgotten bag, glanced at my screen, then hurried off. Afternoon, I said. Afternoon, he murmured. Hank clapped my shoulder. Stay with the paper, he said. It doesn't blink. He walked toward a pickup, dusted white. I lingered, watching our booth cool through the window, then pocketed the mint and headed for the doormind, already arranging cameras and green slips. The mail truck left tracks like pencil lines across the frost. A certified envelope thumped my porch heavy enough to sound deliberate. I wiped my hands on a rag and signed the green card on the top step. The pen scratched and my thumb trembled just enough to make the signature lean. The carrier tore along the perforation, handed me the return, and nodded toward the gate. Rough morning, he asked. Just paperwork, I said. Inside the envelope, the letterhead shouted in bold, Unsafe Structure Board Action Pending. I laid the page flat, snapped a photo of the header with my phone, then turned it sideways to catch the watermark. The paper fought the curl like it had opinions. By noon, the sky was a hard sheet of glass. A horse spooked at the fence when tires hissed over gravel. I stepped out to the drive as a white SUV idled at the property line, nose pointed at the broken hinge like a pointing finger. Karen lowered the window, cheerful as a hostess. We gave you a week, she said, to do what I asked. Remove the hazard. The board votes next week. On my land. On community standards, she said. You'll see. 2 cars followed her bumper at a choreographed crawlboard plates I recognized from meeting photos. A phone rose in the passenger seat lens, glinting. The SUV rolled ahead a foot, The hinge groaned like a tooth. I held up the certified slip between two fingers. "I sign my own papers," I said. "Then sign for the consequences," she said, and smiled. The first board car nosed forward and kissed the gate. Cedar shaved itself in a bright ribbon. The second car did the same. The hinge tore a little more. Karen watched me watch them as if patience were a sport she could win. When they drove off in sequence, the horses sidestepped in unison, heads high. A passing neighbor in a green beanie slowed at the corner and lifted a thumb without stopping. The gesture was quick and private, like a coin slipped under a door. Back in the shop, the breath fogged in front of me and hung there a second thought I could read. I set the certified letter on the bench next to the stamped parcel map and opened the binder to mailings. I slid the green card into a clear sleeve and wrote the date in the margin. The LED work light hummed overhead steady as a metronome. On the pegboard, a calendar square waited at the edge of January. I circled the line I'd just been given board vote next week and wrote the clubhouse address beneath it. The pen bled slightly on the paper. Cold does that. I shook filings from my palm and brought the hinge up to the light. Its scarred face had a bright, fresh bite where the steel pin had chewed against the barrel. I took a picture from 3 angles numbers at the bottom of the frame, small and exact. The smell of cold metal edged into the air. "How unsafe is that?" I asked the empty room. Unsafe to rudeness, I answered myself and set the hinge down. On a sheet of graph paper, I traced a rectangle and then the bones inside it, posts, sunk deep rebar cages, cross members laid out like a rib cage. I sketched a latch that seated into steel, not into hope. The pencil lines darkened under my thumb. "Pretty's not the point," I said. "But it helps," I added and laid a cedar plank across the drawing to see how the grain might dress the iron. The phone buzzed. A text from Hank. "You good? Cameras synced." "Working on it," I typed back. "Board show next week." His dots appeared then. Let the paper speak. I pulled up my camera app and toggled the timestamp overlay on the settings, then wrote Angle A up road. Angle B post low. Angle C plate cross on a sticky note and pressed it to the bench lamp. 3 brackets on the drawing marked where the mounts would go. Outside, the light was already leaning toward blue. Karen's SUV eased past again, slower than slow, just enough to be noticed. She didn't roll her window down this time. She didn't have to. Someone filmed from her passenger seat. The reflection flashed across my shop glass like a small, watchful fish. I ordered 4x4 steel posts, rebar cages, sleeves, and a box of weatherproof camera mounts from a supplier who answers his phone on cold days. He read the order back. "You building a gate or a bridge?" he asked. "Both," I said. "Delivery, before the vote." I said, "Call me when you load." On the way back to the bench, I caught the hinge again with my palm. Tiny curls of cedar clung to my skin and glittered under the LED. I brushed them into a coffee can with my knuckles and listened to the work light hum. The letter on the bench tried to stare me down with its blocked paragraphs and its brass buckle tone. I underlined the phrase, "unsafe structure," and wrote photo proof in the margin. Then I wrote outside boundary under that because maps do not care about tone. "You got posted notice," a voice called from the lane. The neighbor in the green beanie had walked back and stood with his fingers on the fence wire like it would tell him a secret. "Certified," I said, holding up the sleeve. "Point of order then," he said. "They can't vote what they didn't notice." "They'll vote anyway," I said. "Then make them say it out loud," he said and kept walking. I taped the bylaws, autoage printout under the calendar square and drew an arrow to the date. If they meant to march the reserves into the conversation, I intended to have a path marked already. "Armor first," I said, looking at the sketch. Then invitation. I slid the cedar board back over the drawing, matching the edges until the plank covered every line that looked like a weapon. Grain over grid. Beauty over backbone. It calmed me to see how soft could contain strong. "Come try me," I whispered, and the room took the sound in like a secret. The phone chimed again. A different neighbor this time. They're meeting at the clubhouse, 7 p.m. A second text followed. Agenda says new business, no other details, which is how new business likes it. I circled the calendar square twice in red. The pen squeaked. My breath fogged and thinned. At the edge of the pasture, the horses settled their feet and blew steam. The broken hinge winked in the last light like a small, honest injury. I put the certified letter back in its sleeve, the green card behind it, both pages facing out like a pair of witnesses. The binder, rings, clicked shut, sharp and sure. When I killed the LED, the room went quiet enough to hear the distant beep of the HOA gate carry over the cold. By late afternoon, the new gate swung like butter cedar skin over a steel spine, and the cameras blinked tiny red eyes. Heat wavered above the gravel. Cicadas rehearsed a single note until it became courage. Neighbors leaned on the fence rails as if they'd been there all summer. The folded board agenda pressed against my thigh. Action on ranch gate. Reserved transfer clubhouse roof. Hank stood at my shoulder, reading the sky, not the paper. "Get them on the record?" he murmured. Headlights crested the rise white first, then a maroon minivan, then a skittish sedan tied to the rear by resolve and habit. The white SUV nosed the slats. "Compliance check," Karen called. "Private road," I said through the cedar. "Deed on request." "Community rule," she said. "Posted notice," Hank whispered. "Was notice posted?" I asked, not loud, just flat. "Courtesy calls were made," she said. "Minutes reflect that." Hank whispered. "Do the minutes reflect a posted notice?" I asked. "You're obstructing access," she said. "To my parcel," I said. "Your parcel sits on our corridor," she said. "Certified parcel map says otherwise," I said. "Would you like to see it for the record?" A cicada clicked louder like a gavel that had found purpose. Karen's sunglasses showed the gate, not me. "Step aside," she said. "Board presence is sufficient." "Board presence doesn't change boundaries," I said. "We'll verify," she said, and shifted into drive. The bumper met cedar with a shutter metal to metal beneath. The gate didn't budge. Cameras caught the hit. A red blink pulsed like a heartbeat. The rear tires rolled onto the shallow trench I'd concealed with gravel. Pop, pop, pop. Airbags bloomed white. The SUV sank forward hissing. A neighbor's phone wobbled. Another captured the angle clean. Dust rose to mark the moment. "Oh boy," someone breathed. The maroon minivan braked hard, then teetered into the ditch, stuck but unhurt. The sedan squealed and stopped with an embarrassed cough. Karen slapped the airbag aside and shoved her door. "You maniac!" she shouted. "You endangered residents. You endangered yourselves on private property," Hank said, tapping the camera post with 2 fingers. "This is a compliance check," she said. "For the record, I said you attempted to force entry. Cameras indicate 1658 hours. "We'll sue," she said. "File properly," I said. "I prefer paper." On the shoulder, the board clumped into a knot. A clipboard appeared. You could feel the urge to sound official. "Motion to issue emergency removal," Member A said. Second Member B said. A neighbor raised a hand. "Point of order was notice posted," he asked. "This is Field Enforcement," Member A said. "Point of order stands," I said. "What agenda item authorizes action off HOA property corridor authority?" Karen said. "Exhibit," I said, and passed the deed copy and the stamped parcel map through the slats to Hank, who held them high enough for the phones to see. Outside HOA. Parcel 412B. Recorded. "We dispute the map," Karen said. "Then dispute at hearing," Hank said. "Not by bumper." The treasurer squeezed through the knot, sweat shiny at his temple. "Let's stick to removal," he said. "Hazard mitigation. Hazard you initiated," I said. "Gate is sound. Your tires weren't." "You set a trap," Karen said. "I set a boundary," I said. "It held." "Record our objection," she snapped. "To what item?" I asked. "Agenda lists. Action on ranch gate and reserve transfer clubhouse roof." "Which are we on?" "Both," she said. Eyes sharp. "Convenient," Hank muttered. The neighbor trio settled closer. Phones tilted like sunflowers. The far-off lawnmower thrum underlined everything with domestic indifference. "Read the agenda," I said. Hank unfolded the paper and read quietly enough for mics to catch. "Item 4, he said. Action on ranch gate. Item 5, reserve transfer clubhouse roof. Motion Member A repeated. Emergency removal. Second Member B said again softer. Point of order, I said steady. Under what bylaw is emergency defined? And who posted notice? Section 5. Karen said, guessing. Section 5 requires member notice. Hank said, already thumbing the page number on his phone. Where is it posted? Silence skittered. The cicadas carried the beat. Somewhere a sprinkler coughed alive. We can't conduct a full meeting here, the treasurer said. Then you can't vote here, the neighbor said. That's not how minutes work. We're simply documenting a violation. Member A tried. Then document this, I said, and pointed to the camera post. Time code 1659. Angle B, attempted forced entry by board president. Angle C, plate red. Angle A, approach speed. You can't film us, Karen said. Signage at the property line, I said. Recording for safety. We'll see you in court, she said. Good, Hank said. We like rooms where people have to tell the truth twice. The treasurer pulled at his collar. About reserves, he said, voice small. We may need to move money to address this hazard. Clubhouse roof again, Hank asked, eyebrows up. Routine maintenance, he said. Out of cycle, I asked. Timelines are flexible, he said. Minutes aren't, Hank said. They're the story you live with. A neighbor laughed softly, then swallowed it. My heart stayed in its lane. The gate rested unbothered cedar unmarked where the steel mattered. Call a tow, Karen ordered airbag powder ghosting her hair. And get legal on the line. Before you go, I said acknowledge for the record you approached without posted notice. No, she said. I'll mark it as refused, I said. Time code 1701. You don't get to make a record, she snapped. We all do, Hank said. That's the point. Member A cleared his throat, tried to stand taller than his clipboard. Motion withdrawn, he said. Second, withdrawn. Member B added, grateful. Noted, I said. Minutes will show attempt and withdrawal. Whose minutes, Karen asked. Mine, I said. Yours later. Sirens didn't come. They rarely do for paperwork. The lawnmower droned. A dog barked twice and lost interest. This isn't over, Karen said. It's barely started, Hank said. The maroon minivan's driver climbed from the ditch with help from two neighbors who didn't look at him once they'd steadied him. The sedan backed carefully, tires chirping apology. We'll file a hearing, Karen said. The board will address your construction. State the date when you have it, I said. Serve by certified. You're insufferable, she said. I'm patient, I said. Same thing to some folks, Hank said. I reached under the camera housing where a little recorder lived, pressed the tab, and felt the thumb drive click loose. The metal was warm from work. I slid it into a small evidence envelope I'd labeled that morning, wrote the time across the seal, and pressed it flat with my palm. See you at the hearing, I said. Hank nodded at the neighbor trio. Phones charged, he asked. Always one said. The cicadas eased as the sun sloped. Heat let go. The gate cedar skin and steel spine breathed like a held note, finally released. I tucked the agenda, the deed copy, and a timecode list into the binder pouch, closed the zipper, and felt for the first time in a long while the road on my side of the line go quiet. The microphone clicked on a small electric cough. State your name for the record, the chair said. Martha's hand brushed my elbow, calm and certain. The clerk took our thumb drive, slipped it into a sleeve, and labeled it Exhibit B. Gideon Crane, I said. My voice sounded like someone used to holding a receipt against the wind. The room smelled of paper and polish. Fluorescent lights washed everything pale. On Martha's pad, a yellow post-it curved upward. Ask about reserve disbursement timing. Force admission. Counsel. The chair nodded. Thank you, Martha said. Let's establish jurisdiction. She set a certified parcel map under the projector. A red seal winked. Treasurer is Mr. Crane's parcel within Pine Hollow HOA. It's adjacent, he said. Adjacent isn't within, Martha replied. Is it inside your boundaries? No, he admitted. Then cite authority for a lien on that parcel. Objection, HOA counsel said. Argumentative. Overruled, the chair said. Answer. We believed corridor usage allowed, see it, Martha said. The treasurer swallowed. We don't have lien authority beyond the map. She slid a copy of bylaws cahier d'ours forward. This section covers reserve maintenance and transfers. Do you see lien authority here? No, he murmured. Martha turned a page. Where was notice posted for action on Ranch Gate? Karen leaned toward the mic. Courtesy calls were made. Objection, counsel said. She isn't a witness. Sustained, the chair said. Answer the question, Martha repeated to the treasurer. I don't recall, he said. Please speak clearly, the clerk said. I don't recall, he repeated. Martha nodded to the clerk. Admit Exhibit B. Any objection, the chair asked. Foundation counsel tried. Time-stamped and authenticated, Martha replied, placing a sheet of time codes on the table. Objection withdrawn, counsel said. The clerk entered it. Lights dimmed. On the screen, my driveway gleamed in summer sun. Karen's SUV lunged at the cedar. Pop, pop, pop rippled from the speakers as tires burst. Airbags filled with white dust. The room stayed still. Who was driving? Martha asked. For community safety, Karen said. Yes or no? Yes, Karen admitted. On private property. Yes, did you post notice before entering? Silence stretched until the treasurer said quietly, There wasn't one. The video paused on a frame where Hank tapped a camera post. Exhibit B also shows an attempt to hold a roadside vote, Martha said. Was that vote posted? It was withdrawn, the treasurer said. Because a neighbor objected, he said. Martha replaced the image with highlighted minutes. Reserve disbursement clubhouse roof timing exception. She pointed at another line. Second draw. Who approved this transfer outside the schedule? The treasurer looked toward Karen. The president directed it. Counsel objected. The chair shook his head. Answer stands. Was there a member vote? No. Were minutes amended to show roll call? No. Reason for the timing. Weather window. In June, Martha asked. A few people in the gallery stifled laughs. She placed a ledger sheet under the light. This matches the date of a $1 million penalty letter to Mr. Crane. Explain. It's coincidence, the treasurer said. You moved reserves for a roof while threatening a parcel outside your reach. We needed funds, he whispered. Martha faced Karen. Did you order the transfer without a member vote? Karen's jaw tensed. I relied on counsel. Which counsel? Not present. So, yes. Yes, she said at last. Martha capped her pen with a sound that landed like a verdict. We ask for dismissal of all HOA claims for lack of jurisdiction and admission of Exhibits A through D on our counterclaims. HOA counsel tried again. Exclude the video as prejudicial and we request more time on reserves. Denied, the chair replied. Exhibit B is probative. Reserve questions remain. He leaned into the microphone. Findings: the HOA lacks jurisdiction over Mr. Crane's parcel. Claims are dismissed with prejudice. The roadside action was improper. An independent review of clubhouse reserves is ordered with possible sanctions for abuse of process. The room let out a long-held breath. The clerk typed fast keys, clacking like rain. Martha stood. We request the review report be public. So, ordered, the chair said. Counsel objected, but the chair overruled. Martha folded the post-it and tucked it under her pad. Thank you, Mr. Crane, the chair said. Thank you, I answered. Hank raised 2 fingers from the back row. Karen studied the table. The treasurer dabbed sweat with a napkin. Counsel muttered something about appeal. The chair adjourned with a single tap of the gavel. In the hallway, reporters clustered near the elevator. Comment, Mr. Crane, one asked. Let the report speak, I said. Ms. President, did you misuse reserves? Another called. Karen shielded her face with a folder that shook slightly. Martha handed me the envelope holding our exhibits. Keep it, she said. The ledgers aren't done. Understood, I said. I felt the hum of the mic, the smell of polish, the solid paper under my arm. For the first time since this started, the weight had shifted. Coffee? Martha asked as the elevator opened. Black, I said. Perfect, she replied, stepping inside as cameras blinked behind us. I pressed the envelope flatter against my jacket and followed doors sliding shut on a hallway that finally felt level. A week later, the porch was quiet enough for me to hear wind slide through the pasture. The dog leaned against my boot, sighing as if he had been holding his breath since the hearing. Cottonwood seeds floated across the yard, soft and slow. Hank came up the steps carrying a paper sack. Bag of hinge bolts, he said. You earned a boring morning. I've been waiting to be bored, I said. On the sawhorses, a cedar plank rested clean countersinks winking. Hank set 2 mugs down and poured coffee from the kettle. Steam curled in the sunlit air. Paper beats politics, he said, steadying the board. Every time I replied. He added, not fast. Fast is for people who don't plan to live with the result I said. We worked in quiet rhythm, setting bolts through cedar into the steel sleeve. Each turn made the wood hum against its frame. 2 neighbors came up the drive with coffee cups. They looked as if they'd practiced what to say. Morning one said. Afternoon by a nose, I said. The shorter one held out a cup. Paid for by apologies. It's Ben's, I said, taking a sip. We didn't know how to push back, the tall one said. She made it seem like arguing was against the community. You do now, I said. Ask for minutes. Ask for notice. If somebody says, trust me, ask them to spell it. Hank chuckled. Best spelling bee in America. Laughter loosened their shoulders. A mail truck stopped by the fence. The carrier handed over a certified envelope. Not a summons, she said, but sign here. Boring morning, Hank murmured. I signed the green card and slit the flap. Inside was a settlement letter dressed as kindness healing the community limited passage through the gate. They want your dignity on a schedule, Hank said. They want my gate in their mouth, I replied. I wrote 2 sentences on a clean sheet. No community easement exists. The deed proves ownership. I signed and slipped it into the deed folder, filing the offer in a sleeve marked pending. Back at the sawhorses, Hank brushed sawdust aside. Time for the latch. We carried the rebuilt section to the posts, the frame seated neatly. I set the latch plate and drove the screws. A firm click settled into the afternoon. That sound belongs in the minutes, Hank said. Which minutes, I asked. Mine, he said, smiling. We leaned on the rail, watching cottonwood fluff dance above the pasture. Across the road, the HOA clubhouse roof looked smaller, as if the shingles themselves had relaxed. How do we keep it from happening again? A neighbor asked. Show up, I said. Ask small questions. Which account pays for what? Who seconded? Where's the roll call? He nodded. We can do that. You already started? I said. The other neighbor raised his cup in a quiet toast. Down the road, a white SUV slowed at the sight of the new gate. It paused, then turned away. That's a vote you can count, Hank said. Unanimous? I said. The carrier texted a moment later. Return certified will go out on last pickup. I left 2 green slips on the porch rail for scanning. Hank nudged the gate. It swung smooth and settled without protest. You going to gloat? He asked. I'm going to grill, I said. Boring men celebrate with brisket. Send smoke my way, he said, starting down the steps. He pointed at the latch. That's the best answer. When he left, I stood in the calm light and listened to the trees. The wind brushed the top rail and found no splinter. I closed the gate with a soft push and heard the latch settle a quiet promise, holding the line. The folding table waited beside the gate, a thermos steaming against cool April sun. I set a certified deed copy, flat the red seal, bright on white paper. Meadowlarks called from the fence line. The hinge behind us stayed still. Hank poured coffee into paper cups. Put the stamp where they can see it, he said. Front and center. I nudged the deed forward. Neighbors trickled in shoes, crunching gravel. A maintenance truck rolled toward the clubhouse ladder's neat budget, headed to the right place. The driver lifted 2 fingers and drove on. A woman from the bus stop touched the parcel line. So, this is where their map stops. That's it, I said. Recorded and outside their reach. Mind if I take a picture? She asked. Go ahead. A man in a Pine Hollow cap frowned. We were told the board could fine you. You were told loud, Hank said. Doesn't make it legal. I slid over another stamped copy. Paper wins. A boy with a crooked bike helmet squinted at the seal. What about that huge fine? Wasn't real, I said. Just a threat. A neighbor with a church usher's tie looked at the latch. You keeping it locked, I'm keeping it mine. Karen stood apart, sunglasses dangling. She held her car keys like she wasn't sure what to do with them. Hank offered coffee. Short remarks. Let them first, I said. The woman raised her cup. Community means asking first. The man in the cap nodded. Turns out minutes matter. The usher added, showing up isn't just for cranks. Hank tipped his mug toward me. Your turn. I rested a palm on the cedar rail. A gate is only wood and steel, I said. But a line kept is a promise. I wanted quiet, had to read a lot of paper first. Someone near the road asked, Are notices posted on time? Now, they will be, said the interim chair, stepping forward with a clipboard. Website and board time-stamped. The helmet boy pointed at the truck. That for the roof, maintenance, she said. Paid from the right account. Karen's gaze stayed on the gate. The chair flipped a page. Refunds for bad penalties start this week, 18 checks. Write it plain, Hank said. We did, she said. And a page on how to speak at meetings without getting shut down. Laughter rippled. The boy raised his hand. Point of order, recognized, she said. Grinning, Karen's voice came soft. I shouldn't have driven through. The group let the words sit. Hank poured coffee into a clean cup and set it within reach. She only nodded to the deed and the latch. The chair signed her sheet. We'll need a workday for the trails. Anyone? Fence pliers? Hank said. Beans, I said. I'll post the notice, the capman added. Karen moved a half-step closer, eyes on the cedar grain. I'll help with refunds. You already did, the chair said gently. Karen blinked, then stepped back toward the road, sunglasses still in her hand. Hank folded the deed copy and tucked it into a manila folder. Only squeak. I want today, he said, tapping the thermos lid. Good enough, I said. We didn't cut ribbons or make speeches. We let paper lie flat, the gate stay steady, and neighbors speak in turn. When most had gone, I swung the gate once. Cedar slid past steel. The latch whispered closed. Applause came small kind and exactly the size of the morning. I leaned against the post, poured a last cup, and watched Karen pause at the shoulder before walking away slow enough to look like respect. Morning light still leaned across the latch, warm against the cedar I'd sanded smooth. The gate, once splintered, stood quiet before everyone, even Karen, who stayed a respectful step back. Refund envelopes lay under the deed minutes posted clean on a clipboard by the table. Justice isn't loud. It keeps a steady record and lets neighbors find their footing again. We didn't win with noise, but with paper patience and small cups of coffee. If your own street has gone silent under notices or rules, I'd like to hear where you found your steady ground.